Hello everybody! Welcome to Creating the Basic Adaptable Game Engine Library, Part 52, Asteroids, Lasers. In the previous videos, we've set up our background, our moving spaceship, and the rocks in the Asteroids video game. Next, we'd like a way to destroy the rocks, and so we'll have the spaceship shoot some lasers. So this will be an example of a discrete event, and we'll actually have to add a little bit of functionality to the basic library. And so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So first, let's head over to our program. So here we are with IntelliJ. This is our Asteroids class extending our game class. And just like we added a rock group, we also want to add a laser group. This is where we'll put all the sprites corresponding to lasers. We'll go ahead and initialize it down here. Right, so we'll say laser group is equal to a new group, and we need to make sure we add it to the main group. So group.add laser group. But we don't initialize any lasers at the start of the game. Instead, we need to create a laser every time the player presses a certain key. So we'll use maybe the spacebar key in order to shoot lasers. Now, to make this go a little bit more efficiently when the game is running, just like the rock objects share a texture, the lasers will share a texture as well. So I'd actually like to declare that texture at the top of the class. And so let's say public texture laser text. Right, we'll load it up during initialize, and then we'll create a laser later on. And so laser tech will be a new texture from the images/laser.png. Right, and if we look at the picture of the laser, right, it's really just going to be a dot in this case. The reason we're doing this is, first off, all of the collision polygons are rectangles, but they're not rectangles which can be rotated, right, for simplistic collision detection. So we'd like anything which could possibly rotate, right, keeping in mind that the collision box is not going to rotate as well. I'd prefer to avoid something that's like a long skinny rectangle, and instead we'll just use this shape, which incidentally is also more true to the original Asteroids game. All right, so we'll load up this texture here. And then, in the update method of our game, let's say if input is key just pressed, in case you just pressed the space key, now we'll go ahead and set up a laser object. And so we'll say a sprite named laser is a new sprite. That laser will set the texture to be laser tech. We'll set the position of the laser to be the position of the spaceship. And so laser.position, or laser.setPosition, that will be spaceship position X and spaceship position Y. And so we'll set the position of the laser. We also want the laser to be traveling or to automatically move in the same direction that the spaceship is moving. So in order to do that, we'll say, well, first we need physics, right, before we can actually get this moving. So laser.setPhysics, we'll make that a new physics object. We'll give it a fairly fast base maximum speed. No acceleration, no deceleration. Laser.physics.setSpeed. We always need to set the speed as well. And then we'll set the motion angle of the laser to be whatever angle the spaceship was facing. So laser.setMotionAngle, laser.physics.setMotionAngle to be whatever angle the spaceship is at. All right, very good. Then we'll add this laser to the laser group. So laser group dot add laser. See anything else we're forgetting? Think. We need it to wrap. So let's go ahead and add the wrap action as well. Laser dot add action. Action dot wrap to screen. The screen is 800 by 600 pixels. All right, so now it's going to auto wrap. I think that's about everything. Okay, let's go ahead and see if we can shoot lasers. And unfortunately, there are some features that we still haven't added yet. We still will need to make them, eventually disappear. But, oh, there we go. Shot that laser, and there it goes. It just kind of keeps going and going. It wraps, so that works. In fact, I can shoot a whole bunch. I'll get a whole string of them going. And I can shoot them in every direction. That's excellent. Looks like a night sky full of fireflies. All right, so far, everything's working according to what we've coded in. The next thing we'd really like to do is to get these objects to fade out and then disappear, and then kind of get removed from the game. Right, so in addition to this action, I'd also like to add the following action. Right, so I'd like it to kind of fade out. So laser dot add action. And we have a couple of choices. We could have it start to fade out immediately. I usually like to put in a delay first, so maybe it travels forward for half a second and nothing happens, and then it fades out quickly. So what I'm going to do here is add a laser action, action.sequence, and then within the sequence of actions, I'd like to add a delay action, maybe delay for half a second, and then action.fadeOut. Maybe we'll have it fade out over the course of another half of a second. And so a laser should travel forward and then fade away. And remember the way actions work, right? So wrap to screen will still be active at the same time sequence is. Right? Any actions you add, they happen in parallel. Right? So wrap to screen is happening alongside this sequence of actions. Let's go ahead and run this. There is going to be one problem with this code, right, which will become obvious later, is that even if the lasers fade out, they're still going to be there. Oh, there it goes. Did you see that? Let me go ahead and back up a little bit. Then kind of stop. I'll shoot a stream of lasers. Now, can you see that they're kind of full strength opacity, and then they kind of slowly fade out by the time they get here? And maybe I actually want the lasers to stay full power a little bit longer. Now, the funny thing is, even though they've faded away, the lasers are still there, right? And at no point have they actually been removed. So if we had added the part where the lasers intersecting the rocks causes the rocks to disappear, you would notice that rocks are going to start randomly disappearing from these invisible sprites. So what I'd really like to do, and this will take a little bit of thought, I'd love to have something like this. Action.remove. Right? This is showing up as red because we haven't coded this yet, but the idea is once it's done fading out, automatically remove itself from whatever group it's been attached to. Right? And this would be a wonderful thing. If we don't add this, then we'd have to add something more complicated and update, which checks the opacity of the objects. Then if it goes down to 0, it gets removed, and that's just kind of a bother. So what we're going to do, I'm going to comment this out for a moment, we're going to add some kind of built-in remove functionality. And this will happen every once in a while. We'll get an idea of something we want to add, so we'll add some small features to the basic Adaptable game engine library. So the first step is going to be to go over to the entity class. I'd like every entity to keep track of its parent, whatever it's been added to. And so we're going to add a field to the entity class. Public entity parent. Right, and then whenever one object is added to another object, we'll set the parent. And so this is specifically going to happen usually in groups. Right? In groups, we have an add and remove. So I'm going to add a little bit more code here. Right? So when I add something to this collection, right, E is the entity being added to this group. Right? In addition to adding it to this list, I want to say E.parent. Your parent is this group. You're being added to this group. Similarly, when we remove something from this collection, we remove entity E, and we'll say E dot parent is now null. Right? If you're removed from the group, you no longer have a parent. And then finally, I need to be able to remove something from a group. Right? So let's see, how am I going to do that? So maybe this will be a method, let's see. I guess really I can't add anything to a sprite. So maybe what I really want to say is, right, your parent must be a group object. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. And now I want to be able to remove an entity, right? Remove a group from another group or remove a sprite from a group. So let's see, this is an abstract class, not an interface, so I can write code here. So let's say remove self. Right, I can't use, oh, and I need a void. Right, I can't really call this remove because I have a remove method in the group, but I'll say remove self. And the way you'll remove yourself, an entity can remove itself from its group, is I'll say, take a look at your parent and have your parent remove this object, meaning this, you, yourself, the sprite. Right now, we've got some basic kind of self-removal ability into the game engine. Now, what I'd really like to do is say, make an action which allows me to call remove self. Right, so in the action class, we're going to set up a new action. Right, and this action is going to be not really a meta action. It's going to be like one of these more traditional actions. And so going over to the action class, I'm going to say public static action remove. Or maybe I'll call it remove self, because it is calling the remove self method. Right, so a remove self action should return a new action. Right, and remember, when we're specifying an action, we're using the lambda expression syntax. Right, so this is how I pass in a function. And all the functions have to take in really all of these parameters, even if I don't use them. Right, and really, what am I going to do? I'm going to say target dot remove self, and then I can return true. Right, this action is immediately complete. Each action returns basically true if the action is now finished. All right, put in a semicolon right there. And hey, there's our new action, remove self. Let's go back to the Asteroids game. All right, so now we're going to add an action called remove self. I've got to spell self correctly. One of the problems is going to be that it's going to be hard to tell if things are getting removed if they fade out first. Right, so what I'll do here is I'll temporarily comment out the fade out action. So now each laser should delay for a second, and then it should remove itself from the game, meaning it should just instantly disappear. Right, it removes itself from the laser group, so it'll no longer be rendered, and we'll no longer use it to check for overlaps with rocks. Okay, let's go ahead and add this in. Give this a run. See if those lasers disappear as expected. All right. Kind of hard to see right there because I think it takes about a second to exactly get to the end of the screen. So let's position the spaceship over here and start shooting. And sure enough, after a second, they all disappear right around here. All right, so the remove is working perfectly. Let's also add in an action fade out. And now the lasers are acting as expected. All right, so this block of code in the update method allows us to press the spacebar and shoot a laser. And there's a lot of setup. Finally, I do want lasers to destroy rocks. So let's go ahead and let's do a kind of a double for loop and check if any lasers overlap any rocks. All right, so let's say for each entity rock in rock group, rock group.getList. And then within that, I need to say for each entity laser in laser group.getList. We want to check if there's an overlap between the rock and the laser, and if so, get rid of both. So if rock overlaps, you know what? I have to cast these both into sprite objects. So maybe I'll call this rock E and laser E for entities. And I'll say sprite rock is equal to, casting that into a sprite. And this is kind of a pain, so part of me wants to go ahead and change some code so getList returns a bunch of sprites. But not in this video. We'll do that maybe in a later video. Right, so take those entity objects, cast them into sprites. That's necessary so I can use the overlap method, which only exists for sprites. So I'll say I'll say if rock.overlaps laser, and we'll say rock.remove self and laser.remove self. We could also say rock group remove rock and laser group remove laser. That also works. All right, but with this new block of code, we should be able to destroy those space rocks. Let's go ahead and run. This will be the final thing we'll try to do in this video, so hopefully this is going to work. All right, it's about to run. Let's go ahead and let's shoot these things. Hey, looks like this is working. I'll just spam and shoot a whole bunch of things. So, hey, there we go. All right, we've added the lasers. The laser feature is complete. However, when a laser hits a rock, it is kind of anticlimactic. So in the next video, we're going to add an animated special effect. We're going to add some explosions. But this is a good breaking point for this video here. Thanks for watching.